Podcast hosted by Evan Lazar bi-weekly when we can get it to you, or as often as we can. Early in the week, we're going to review, and then later in the week, Evan's going to look ahead to the upcoming matchup, which this week is Arizona. So first off, I'll tell everybody, if you don't already, subscribe, rate, review the Patriots Beat podcast, one of our longest running podcasts on the CLNS Media Network. Evan Lazar is your host, and as always, brings you the best breakdown, video analysis, and advanced scouting.
We like to think so, at least.
That's how we're billing it. But one of the great things about Tuesdays is usually by this point, Evan's seen the coaching film. We have a good idea what went wrong in that loss to the Texans on Sunday, but things really come into focus once you get a chance to really look at it and see what really happened here. And while again, in our post-game show and a lot of the post-game commentary, everyone's offense obsessed. Why weren't the Patriots running it more? What's up with Cam Newton? Most of the talk about Cam Newton in the future. Most of the focus on what you're seeing here and the stuff that you think that really was an issue had to do with the defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can start with Cam, then we'll work our way to the defense. I think, I just tweeted out my film review from today with the coach's film and all that kind of good stuff. And the biggest sort of takeaway that I have, and I hope that Patriots fans don't take this the wrong way, because it's coming with love. We were spoiled, right? We were spoiled by Tom Brady. And on top of being spoiled by Tom Brady's just consistency year in, year out, down in, down out, we were also kind of trained our eyes to watch quarterback play from a certain perspective. So Brady plays the game with surgical precision, great accuracy, great timing and anticipation, quick reads, processes the field, gets the ball out to the right receiver, and is always accurate with the football. Cam Newton is a different kind of passer. That doesn't make him a bad passer. It just means he's a different kind of guy. He's a different kind of thrower, and he really is much better down the field on vertical concepts. So I think a lot of people watch the game on Sunday and they get frustrated by all the throws that Cam Newton threw into the dirt on short throws to N'Keal Harry and errant throws to the running backs coming out of the backfield, and they say, this guy isn't it, right? He can't hit a 5-yard pass to save his life. That's not exactly what we want here in this offense. That's not exactly what I'm used to seeing, what's worked in the past. Well, guess what? The things that they're doing with Cam down the field, the vertical passings, those things are definitely working for the team. And that's sort of what I tried to break down in today's film review is, it's going to be different. It's not going to be surgical. It's not going to be, 2.5 seconds and the ball is out every single time. It's a different style of offense, which doesn't necessarily make it bad. We just have to grow accustomed to watching it from a different perspective.
Well, again, and Evan, this is something I wanted to get into a little bit later in the podcast, but I think obviously a lot of people who watched Tom Brady play yesterday against the Rams are seeing something that might make you feel better, might make you feel worse about the Patriots situation here, which is, I think people remember things at their best and not necessarily what they actually were. And one can make an argument here that it's not clear that the Patriots offense would be better with Tom Brady right now. Where you have to look a little bit deeper is everything else going on around it, which is, again, the defense, which we haven't really hit here, nothing at the tight end position, just some inconsistencies. Again, we've talked about the receivers. We're not going to make this the N'Keal Harry show again, but it is what it is. Julian Edelman being hurt. And it's still, the offense is not the reason they're losing games this year, whereas you could point to the offense absolutely being the reasons why the Patriots finished really poorly last season and why they got eliminated, because they couldn't put up any points against a very beatable Texans team, and they just couldn't. So this is a team that lost 3 of 5 down the stretch here, another 4 and 6 here. It's a sub 500 team almost the course of a full season, regardless of who the quarterback is.
Exactly. So that's a big kind of sticking point for me in this game, was that a lot of conversations about what Cam Newton did wrong, and myself included, we all get kind of sucked into that, especially right after a loss. It's all negative and it's all doom and gloom. So we start talking about blitz pickup and the batted passes at the line of scrimmage and the errant throws in the short part of the field. Again, it's just a different style of play. Cam Newton is really feasting on vertical passing concepts, right? Things down the football field. He was 9 for 11 for 219 yards, throwing 10 or more yards down the field on Sunday against the Texans. He destroyed them down the field. That's a good thing. It's just a different style than what we're used to. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, and I don't know if we want to get into the defense just yet, because there are some questions I know about Josh McDaniels and all that kind of stuff, but the defensive side of the ball is far more concerning to me because the Patriots are not executing the game plan. The game plan against the Texans might have been to run the football a little bit more offensively, depending on what Houston did. But once Houston did what they did, the Patriots wanted to throw the ball down the field, and they were effective throwing the ball down the field. On the other side of the ball, the game plan was not executed well at all, and that has to be extremely frustrating for Bill Belichick, because I think a lot of the narrative coming out of the game was that the Patriots didn't get any pressure on Deshaun Watson. Well, it wasn't that the Patriots weren't trying to pressure Deshaun Watson, but it wasn't the top priority. If they wanted to blitz Watson, if they wanted to get exotic with their pressure looks and with their fronts, they could have gotten after Deshaun Watson in that game. But what Belichick decided to do was what he did against the Chiefs in week 4, which was rush 3 or 4 guys and play coverage, play 7 or 8 guys in coverage. If the guys in coverage don't hold up their end of the bargain, then the game plan doesn't work. So I didn't really have much of an issue with the pass rush. My concerns are more with the pass coverage, because that's supposed to be the strength of this defense that they can lean on and they can hold their hat on, especially in these types of matchups. You play to your strengths, right? Your pass rush is not necessarily the strength of your defense, but your coverage is. So they played 7 or 8 in coverage and they got shredded by Watson. So we can go into why and how they got shredded by Watson. But again, it's still the offense, I think, is just situational stuff, right? Just key critical situations, 3rd down, 4th down plays late in games, things like that. You have to be able to execute better in those key spots. But that's sort of like a macro picture type of thing, right? Whereas with the defense, there's a lot of things going wrong defensively that are a lot more worrisome to me than what's anything going on with Cam or the offense.
And it's always, again, I think people are preconditioned to always just expect there to be answers. Sunday might have been a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario when it came to Watson. If you bring pressure, you can get lit up there, and obviously he performed well against the blitz. And if you sit back, he has time to pick you apart, and that's what happened. You had D-backs trying to cover for 4, 5, 6 seconds sometimes, and that's just you're never going to be able to do something. The question is, it was an uninspired game plan defensively. On both sides of the ball, they are still playing really simple concepts. And again, it's just, I'm not sure the reason why, or if you have a theory, the reason why, but where's the standing at the line, amoeba defense sort of stuff, anything to create a little misdirection, confusion, things that you normally do. Again, when you've got the goods, you can sit back, play your defense, play tight man as they did the past couple of years, and just force teams to beat them and know that they can get home with the rushers that they have. When you don't have the personnel, or when you have limitations, usually is when you scheme it up a little bit better. They didn't do either on Sunday.
Yeah, so they did run some what I would call simulated pressures, which just basically means that the guys that you think would rush actually drop into coverage, and the guys that you think are going to drop into coverage rush. But normally what happens is that those simulated pressures are 4-man rushes still, right? So what you're doing is you're taking an edge defender, for example, you're going to drop him off the line of scrimmage into a short zone, and then you're going to rush the off-ball linebacker up the middle. Unfortunately, the Texans actually did a really good job with their offensive line and Watson and their running backs of picking up those pressures and knowing where the Patriots were going to drop guys and where they were going to send guys. So they tried to do that a little bit. They did dial that up. But the main issue was that if you got 7 or 8 guys in coverage, then you better be able to cover. You have to be able to cover all the guys back there with 8 guys in the coverage. So what was happening for New England, especially between the numbers, which has just been a disaster for them all year long, is that you have a cornerback with outside shade or outside leverage taking a tight end across the field, and the safety help in the middle of the field is just never comes. Right. So you have Kyle Duggar, for example. I know he got picked on a little bit at times. Right. Duggar is running across the middle of the field with Jordan Akins on a poster, kind of like a crossing route. And he's expecting Devin McCourty on the other side of the field to cut the crossing route off and drop into that passing window to deter that throw or disrupt that throw. Instead, he never gets that middle of the field safety help. So it looks like he gets toasted by Atkins, when in reality, the coverage system as a whole sort of broke down. So on a couple of those throws to the tight ends, that is really what the main thing was, is that outside leveraged corners are pushing guys towards the middle of the field towards their help, and the help is nowhere to be found. And that's, I think, a bigger issue in terms of just what they're getting in the middle of the field. Then there were some instances, certainly with zone dropping and stuff like that. I think the big thing that you have to look at, though, is that if they're going to play this style of defense, you're going to put 7 or 8 guys in coverage, then you better be able to close down the middle of the field and get into those crossing windows and disrupt those tight ends. That can't happen like it did against the Texans if that's the style of coverage that you're going to play.
I mean, we talked about this Sunday too. It's just people feasting in the middle of the field. So, I mean, you have no-name tight ends just running free against this Patriots defense. And again, these are largely personnel issues. You just don't have guys there. One person that caught a little bit of heat this game, and you tell me whether you think it was justified, was Kyle Duggar.
Yeah.
Who, again, we've seen him work as kind of an in-the-box safety or rush coming up and filling and supporting the run game. But in coverage and in space and, matched up against tight ends here. Again, hard to tell when you're watching at home what exactly is going on there and how many of these things are his responsibility, if he's getting beat or if he's lost or if he's missing assignments. But what were your thoughts of him and his play Sunday?
Well, believe it or not, he actually only allowed 2 catches into his coverage. They were for 44 yards, and both of them were big plays.
Yep.
But I think what really it comes down to, and I'm not trying to defend Kyle Duggar, because his coverage, even against Mark Andrews last week against Baltimore, was a little loose at the top of the route. He's having trouble sticking with receivers in their breaks and staying with tight ends at the top of the route break, whereas maybe at the line of scrimmage, he can be a little bit more physical, and he certainly has the recovery speed to get back into the play and sort of disrupt the hands late. But for the most part, the top of the route, he's been a little bit loose. But again, a lot of those coverages and both of the plays that he got beat on Sunday, he's expecting the middle of the field to be closed. He's expecting a safety to come down and take away that crossing window and be that middle of the field help, because he has outside leverage. And if he doesn't have that middle of the field help, then it's going to look like he's getting burned. Now, there were a couple of zone drops, and I put one of them in my film review, where Josh Uche and Kyle Duggar are both on the field together, and it's just young linebackers taking the cheese, right? And play designers and quarterbacks are smart, and Deshaun Watson in particular is extremely good at attacking between the numbers. So what he did was he just kind of moved those zones with his eyes just a little bit, and then was able to find the passing lane back into the middle of the field. So there's one where, the running back kind of releases out of the backfield. Uche sort of gets reactive a little bit, jumps towards the running back, and it just opens the passing window there. And Duggar was right next to him in the middle of the field. And ideally, when you see that kind of bump down, right, Watson sort of staring down the running back, and then he's going to come to the second guy in with Will Fuller, you sort of want Duggar to kind of creep in a little bit more and close down that passing lane and be a little bit more instinctive there in his zone. But overall, I thought that he got kind of unfairly criticized in a way because of the middle of the field coverage not doing its job, the help defenders not doing their jobs, and Duggar was sort of left out to dry. The whole coverage system for the Patriots, especially when they go single high post safety, which is most of the time, is predicated on closing the middle of the field with those zone defenders. And if you don't do that, then the corners on the outside and man coverage with outside leverage, they're going to get exposed. And that's really what we saw time and time again, is just corners chasing guys across the field with nobody cutting them off in the middle of the field and just being too late to the pass. And that's, I think, a bigger issue. Again, it's team defense. I don't think it's necessarily the corners or Jason McCourty or Kyle Duggar, messing up. It's really a whole team type of philosophy where you have to be able to help each other and play to leverage and be able to leverage those routes coming across the middle of the field.
All right, let's switch back to offense. Again, it's hard to fault. And Belichick, when asked about it in a recent interview, it might have been on the radio, actually, not one of his press conferences, but on the radio on EEI, asked why he went away from Damian Harris, who had such a huge game against. I guess in general, everyone is wondering why they didn't do what they did against Baltimore, against Houston, almost across the board. And I know Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson are different quarterbacks. Belichick has a great deal more respect for Deshaun Watson and what he can do both as a passer and with his legs when he needs to. But that being said, across the board, this was a game where it just seemed like this was going to be the Damian Harris show, 35 carries and a cloud of dust here. when you look back at it, and again, I know you're the film guy here, but even when I went back and I looked at stuff, you did notice that while Harris did get some things going in the early going, they actually weren't very well blocked. He bounced it outside a couple of times himself and made yards where there was nothing there, with the exception of the toss sweep where he went in for the touchdown, where they absolutely just cleared the runway for him and he had nothing but space. But even a couple of those early, it was really more on him being able to bounce it, show some quickness, which was great. But they were really defending that toss really well. Later, they were coming up. The D-backs were coming up. There was really nothing there. Not much going on between the tackles. Really, 11 carries was pretty surprising, even still. And this is kind of where you're stuck is they were daring the Patriots to throw, and the Patriots did throw. And Cam was actually fairly successful throwing the ball, with the exception of a few throws. But you're always going to nitpick, why didn't it happen here and why didn't they run? Now, this comes back to me, to Evan, to identity. If you do what the other team is daring you to do, you're playing into their hands. And this is what the Patriots have done to teams for years. You're making them play left-handed. If your strength is, in fact, bully ball, is it not incumbent on the coaching staff to figure out a way to get that thing going?
It's a good question, and I think that's a great point, is that their team wants to be a run-first offense. Yeah. So when you play to your weakness of passing the football, even though they pass the ball well, I mean, Cam averaged over 9 yards per attempt, and they moved the football. That was one thing that Belichick said after the game is, hey, we moved the football between the 20s. The problem was we got into the scoring zone, and we had some penalties. We had some just bad execution, and we just failed to punch the football into the end zone. So the issue wasn't moving the ball down the field. It was finishing the drives. Now, with that being said, they are a run-first team, and what the Texans did, they did sort of two different iterations of their game plan. The first one was a 4-4 stack, which just means 4 guys across the line of scrimmage with 4 guys behind them, 8 guys in the box. And what they're going to do out of that 4-4 stack is they are going to one gap, right? And so there's a player, a defender, in every single gap across the line of scrimmage, right? All 6 of them from tackle to tackle. You try to run against that. It's like trying to run against a brick wall in the inside, right? The other way that they went about it was they went with more of their 3-4 alignment, but they put 6 guys on the line of scrimmage, and again, they won gap. So a lot of people talk about the toss play, for example, that got Rex Burkhead's ACL blown out, and they say, that was one too many, and I agree, they probably went to the well one too many times on that play, and it really, came back to bite them. But if you go and you look at the way the Texans defense aligns on that play, they have 6 guys up on the line of scrimmage, each in a gap. Right. So you're not going to run the ball up the middle with that sort of look. So the Texans were really making sure that the Patriots were not going to be able to run the football. Now, the one thing that I think is really interesting about sort of the coaching staff and the way that they can go about combating that from a run game perspective is the Patriots, they love to pull guards. They are a pulling guard team. They are power. They like to pull the guard into power or trap type of plays. They lead the league in pullers and in running plays with a puller. That is what happens when you one gap, is that you put a guy right over the guard that's going to pull, and he just shoots it right up the middle, right? Yep. And if you pull that guard and the guy's still shooting the ball right over him, he's going to blow up the play every single time. So the answer really is, to make the long story short, is that they have to find ways with zone schemes or with lead schemes to be able to make sure that they're not pulling guards all the time and leaving themselves vulnerable to those guys just shooting gaps up the middle of the defense and blowing things up before they can even get started. Those pulling plays are really difficult to do when every single play the defense has a guy in the A or B gap that's just shooting right up the field. You can't pull guards in that situation. So it kind of takes the Patriots out of that part of the Patriots game plan, or that part of their offense, off the books. So what do you go to? You go maybe to some outside zone or inside zone type of stuff. Maybe you run some lead plays with the fullback in the backfield, and you try to just kind of double team those guys in the A gaps in the line of scrimmage and get them out of there. I mean, that's probably the best way to do it. But when you watch the game back and you look at the fronts that the Texans ran, you can really tell why the Patriots didn't want to run the football inside. It was just all bottled up in there. Yep. And you got these 3 guys on the back end. I mean, why not try to, take advantage of all that space in the secondary with your receivers? So yeah, it's sort of a yin and a yang, right? Because on the one hand, you want to be who you are, you want to stick to your identity, so to speak, and be a run first team, but you also have to respond. It's like a game of chess. You have to react to the moves that the defense is making, and every defense can kind of take one thing away and they're going to leave one thing open. and the Patriots had to sort of go with the one thing that they left open, which just happened to be the passing game.
Yep. So we are going to, I want to let everybody know who's listening or live at this point. And again, this will be put out as a regular podcast. Subscribers at home can listen at their leisure. But if you are on the stream now, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter, or wherever, file up your questions. I see a bunch stacking up now. We will get to them in the last 10 minutes or so of the show. I also just want to remind everybody again that you can always make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, clnsmedia.com/Patriots Press Pass. Just go to YouTube, search for Patriots Press Pass. Make sure you subscribe every time we go live with something like this. You'll get a notification, and you'll also get alerted when we put up all of our premium video content with Evan Lazar breaking down game film, game action, reporting live from Gillette Stadium, where he'll be this Sunday as the Patriots host the Cardinals. I want to leave the Pats for a split second, move over to our pal Tom in Tampa.
I knew we were going to hit on this.
Well, again, it is interesting because again, this is as much for the Cam Newton crowd as it is for anything else, or maybe it's a little bit of salve for some people who are just feeling that, wounded by what's going on with the Patriots this year and seeing Tom thrive over in Tampa. The reality of the situation is Tom Brady in 10 games has played 3 horrible games and about 3 really mediocre games in Tampa and 2 or 3 plus games. He has not been terrific. And again, you can blame system, a new place, or whatever it is. I don't know how much of Brady's games you've watched, but the stat that's really popping over the last 3 or 4 for people is a deep ball, which is something that always followed him here in New England. He's 0 for his last 22 deep ball attempts. And so they're really having a tough time. Brady just is not a fit for Arians' vertical offense here at all. And this is something we knew going in. And you've got a real you've got they're at loggerheads right now because Arians wants to do it his way. He threw him the bus in comments today about his 2 interceptions, which are horrible interceptions, saying Brady's confused by coverage. I haven't heard somebody refer to Tom Brady as confused ever. But that's a situation that's not going great. Now, really, my main point isn't to sit here and pick apart Tom Brady's performance here. The reality is Tom Brady has been on the slight decline for the last couple of seasons, and that's been evident in his numbers. The question here is everybody just always wants to look at what happens in Tampa. And when it's going well here, it's okay. It was Bill all along. And when it's going over there, it was Tom all along. And I think the reality here, Evan, might be that these guys actually need each other in order to make things work.
Exactly. And I think the biggest thing that we see with this Patriots team is right now they are 1-4 on game tying or winning drives in the fourth quarter.
Exactly what you need Brady for, and we talked about it on Sunday, is the ball been in Cam's hands how many times? 5 times this year. They won 1 of them.
Right. So they're losing 4 out of 5 right now in those sort of late game, close game situations. And if you look over the course of the Patriots dynasty over the last 20 years, sure, there are instances where the Patriots just blow teams out by 3 touchdowns, and there's no situation that you need that. But the vast majority of the games are close ones. All the Super Bowls were close. That's where it really kind of separates everybody, and you win or lose. So the Patriots sort of need Tom Brady for those late game situations because Bill is going to keep them in the game defensively. He's going to make his adjustments. He's going to get tighter in coverage, and they were in the second half. They held him to 6 points in the second half, and they put the offense in a position to win the game, and Cam can't win it. But on the other hand, with Brady, the system and sort of just the overall coaching of the team in Tampa Bay, the discipline, the way they go about their business down there is not on a level that Brady is used to, and it's not as clean of a sort of operation as what Brady is used to. So in a way, Brady needs the system. Belichick needs the star, right? And that's sort of what we're seeing play out over the course of the season. Now, in terms of Brady and how he's playing, I think the biggest thing that you sort of look at is what we talked about at the beginning of the show with Cam. Cam is a vertical passer. He's a down the field guy. And you see him out there on Sunday against Houston throwing 20-yard ropes.
See it, hit it.
Right. Just zipping the ball down the field. Tom Brady, on the other hand, he's a get the ball out quickly, horizontally stretch the defense, let me see the coverage, let me see the picture and find the best answer from there. That's not really Arians' offense. So that was the fascinating thing that I had in my mind when Brady signed there was is Arians going to be more Brady, or is Brady going to be more Arians? So far, it sounds like Brady is having to be more Arians, and they're still trying to air the football out with a 43-year-old quarterback who has never been a high volume deep passer outside of just, the Randy Moss season. Basically, he's never been a guy, and that's not saying that Brady can't throw deep. It's just not something that he should be doing, 20 times a game or whatever it is that Arians wants him to do. So in Arizona and in Pittsburgh and in Indianapolis at times, Arians was a sometimes even 4 wide receiver, 10 personnel type of guy. They almost never use a tight end. Now they do, obviously, because they have Gronk, but he doesn't use a tight end predominantly in his offense. They don't do a whole lot of crossing stuff at the intermediate level. They don't do a whole lot of the option routes at the short level of the field where Brady's just kind of reading and picking apart coverage based off of leverage and stuff like that. So it's just a much different system. And I think that the interesting thing will be, if this marriage continues beyond this season, is does Arians come the other way? Because remember in Denver
but he has to, right? Because it doesn't make sense. I mean, this is analogous to having a quick, jukey running back and continuing to smash him into the line because you want to play smash mouth football. This is the problem in the NFL in general. You have so many coaches who have a system and they play that system regardless of personnel, whereas the Patriots have adapted their system to switch and play 4-3-3-4, 1 gap, 2 gap, whatever it is, air it out downfield, use the backside of the backfield, 2 tight end. You play to your strengths here. It is very peculiar that you have this high precision passer who can read defenses and just say, all right, Gino, you're the bottle cap, run downfield. It doesn't make but that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and the touchdown to Mike Evans early on in the game where he just had that little 5-yard out that he then kind of like gronked his way into the end zone afterwards. That's a perfect example of how Tom Brady wants to live, right? He just kind of gets the ball, he reads out the leverage of the defensive back. Mike Evans knows, okay, if the defender is playing me outside, I'm going to break inside. If he's playing me inside, I'm going to break outside. Right. If the defender's playing him inside, he breaks outside. Brady hits him with the ball, puts it in a perfect spot, and gets it out to him in time so that he can then create after the catch. I think that's one of the things that we're not seeing with Cam that frustrates Patriots fans, is that sometimes those short throws, the ball's a little bit low, or it's a little bit here, it's a little bit there, and those yak opportunities that we're so used to seeing for their Patriots receivers aren't the same because they're not getting the ball in a position to turn and run up the field. So that's what Brady wants to be, and then all of a sudden we start seeing the game kind of wear on, and also you notice how comfortable he is throwing the ball to Gronk still, because Gronk is doing Gronk things. He's running over routes and behind the second level, the linebacker level, off play action, and doing different things like that. And whenever the play sort of breaks down or Brady doesn't know where exactly he should go with the football based off the coverage, he's still to this day looking for 87. And sometimes Gronk is making good plays. You have to give it to him. The year off has sort of done some good for him, I think. I don't think he's all pro Gronk again, but he's a serviceable tight end again. I'm sure the Patriots would really like to have him. So that's definitely something that you have to look on. But again,
it's the Brady trust tree, and he's always he needs it. But just Evan, because I want to move on to the chat real quick. On Brady. I want to put on Bo on Brady quickly. While it is easy to blame Arians and the system here and it being ill-fitting, again, watching Tom, I don't know if you get this vibe, but he's seeing ghosts still a little bit when it comes to pressure. I don't know how at this stage in his life or career that he wants to really get hit much anymore. He let go of some balls early. He sailed a few where he didn't want to sit there in the pocket, take a hit. He let go of a couple of one pass to Fournette that ended up being incomplete, one of 3 drops Fournette had. Brady did him no favors by just rocketing that thing out early before the pressure had really come and before the play had really developed. So he's not his sharpest self either. And again, this is a reality of who he is and who he was. So anybody sitting here missing Tom, wondering whether I am not convinced the Patriots offense right now is better with Tom Brady. And I don't think Cam's playing great by any measure. But I certainly don't think that's the problem with this team right now. And we'd be going through a lot of issues with Tom as well if he were here. I am interested in hearing what everyone else is saying here. So let me someone thinks I'm day drinking. No, it's water. It's water. It's water. The bar, ignore the bar behind me, I swear.
It's water, right.
It's water. Tomorrow around this time, when I think it's everybody unofficially is off the clock. I know you'll still be working. It might not be water. So let's see, Evan.
I know you'll be working. Yeah.
Let's see.
I do want to say one more thing with Brady while you're still looking for that.
Yeah.
I think that if it wasn't for the weather in Tampa, that he might be one and done there.
Right?
He loves the weather. He loves the jet skis on the dock, and he loves the beach right outside his house, all that kind of stuff. But with the way that Arians just reamed him out publicly over and over again, he can't read coverages. Brady's missing guys. Brady's doing things wrong. I just can't imagine him staying there much longer if it wasn't for the fact that it's 90 and sunny there.
I think so too. I don't disagree at all. I think he can live the life there, and that's why I mentioned him not really wanting to get hit. I view Tampa almost in semi-retirement for Brady right now.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like, I can still go out there and have fun. I got Gronk. I can still, have a good time. But again, if just the coach quarterback mix just doesn't seem to click for me.
It doesn't. And you wonder if it comes to a head at some point or another. And this could be a Brady or Arians,
you got to pick Arians if you're the Bucs. Brady's going to, although Arians is getting up there in age too. So I don't know who you end up picking in that one.
Yeah, well, this could be Arians gone and a Josh McDaniels show, but we're not sure about that. That'll lead us to our first question here.
Yeah.
How do you feel about McDaniels this year? You mentioned it early in the pod. I wanted to circle back. I saw this question come through, and I figured this would be a good spot to do it.
So I think that people that criticize Josh McDaniels' play calling as like this big issue with the Patriots offense are usually missing the point. Like I think that you can nitpick at certain things with Josh McDaniels. I have to wonder, everybody kind of points to like the 2nd and 17 runs and the screen passes on 3rd and long. And so the one in the 4th quarter, he runs it on 2nd and 17. I didn't love it either. I would wish that we could trust Cam there to throw the football, especially with how well he was throwing the football in the game. But my question is that McDaniel's decision to run the ball in 2nd and 17, or is that going above him to Bill? And Bill's in his ear saying, Josh, we got to come away with 3 points here. Right? We're in it. We're backed up. We had a sack. We had a penalty. We're not in favorable field position anymore. It's a 4-point game or a 7-point game at that point. I want to come away with 3. So what does Josh McDaniels do on 2nd and 3rd down? He runs it on 2nd down. He runs a little screen pass on 3rd down, and you get an easy field goal for Nick Folk, and you get your 3 points. So my question is this a Belichick conservative thing? Is this a McDaniels conservative thing? I don't think it's necessarily fair in those situational type of kind of sequences to point to the offensive coordinator as the problem necessarily, when I think this could be more above his head with the head coach saying, we're gonna play for a field goal here. Let's not test it, right? Because the worst thing that could happen is, first of all, he takes a sack and knocks him out of field goal range, or a turnover, and you don't get the 3 points because he throws a pick. And I just don't think that they're consistently confident in that ability out of Cam Newton yet. So I'm not sure. In terms of the design of the offense, I think he's honestly been really, really good. He's mixed in a nice amount of trick plays in there as well, which I think he deserves credit for. The double passes and things like that, building complements off of different concepts that they run, having nice sequences where he kind of crack tosses on one play, then he shows you the same formation, but it's something else out of that formation. This time it's like a play action pass. These are sort of the nitty gritty details that people kind of gloss over, right? Is the play designing and the sequencing of the plays together.
And you hate to make excuses for things, and I'm not going to make them for Josh McDaniels, but again, the reality of the situation is Julian Edelman, save for one game, has basically been out or a non-factor the entire season. N'Keal Harry's been an absolute non-factor the entire season. Your 2 best offensive players currently were either not dressed, injured, or just not used in the first 3-4 games of the year. You had David Andrews was out for a while. You had massive issues on the offensive line, in addition to no training camp and Cam Newton coming in and learning a new offense. And the offense, I think they're making the most of their limitations. Again, it was much easier to scheme things out when you had Brady and a bunch of people who were in the system for a while that could do a lot of different things. It just isn't what you have right now. So I also don't think McDaniels. I do think it's interesting because a ton of people, again, while defense continues to be the issue that's been killing this team, everyone's still looking at Cam. And again, I think a lot of the reason here is you're just nobody's used to I don't know how old most people are who are watching right now, but if you're 25 or 28 or younger, you have no friggin' idea what it's like to yeah, and again, to go through Tommy Hudson and Hugh Millen and Scott Secules and and what it's like, or even Bledsoe, who when he was drafted was this ray of light and this hope, this beacon that came in here. And then after a few years, you realized you're actually fairly limited with this guy as well, but he was so much better than what you had. Drew Bledsoe, you're fortunate enough to get a quarterback like Drew Bledsoe. You're happy if your team has someone who you think is tickling the top 10 in quarterbacks. It is very uncharted waters for the Patriots fans right now to be wondering what the quarterback, what's in store at the quarterback position beyond this season. So again, it's Gotti here, Gotti Jr.
Yes.
Do you think Cam comes back next year, or does Bill want to move on from this experiment? And again, I know you think yes for next year, but beyond that, Evan, where are they getting that quarterback?
Yeah, so I just want to shout out Gotti. He listens to a lot of our stuff and is always here. So thanks for watching. But I just want to say, I think for the quarterback position, to me, the guy that needs to be upgraded is Jarrett Stidham. Yeah, he's the one that I would look for them to get a younger quarterback in here through the draft that has a future at that position beyond what we've seen out of Stidham so far. So I actually think Cam's this sort of bridge guy, which he has been this year and could serve as for the next year or two, because even if you draft a Zach Wilson, really outside of Trevor Lawrence, I don't think any of these quarterbacks in the draft are ready to be plug and play year one starters, especially in this system. So I would like to see them, even if they go after a quarterback early in the draft, at some point in the first 2 rounds, pick a quarterback, but allow Cam to hold the cards for at least another year and then kind of get into that next conversation with the quarterback of the future, because they're going to need to groom the next guy. Like a la Jimmy Garoppolo, what they've tried to do with Stidham, it's not going to be a situation where they're just going to be able to throw a rookie into the fire and get better play than what they're getting out of Cam. Cam is definitely a better quarterback right now than anything that they're going to get in the draft, at least for the 2021 season. So yeah, again, Cam, I think, is here to stay for 2021, if you ask me, if the money works out. And then you draft a quarterback to upgrade from Stidham as your backup and as sort of your heir apparent. And then you kind of, groom that guy and go from there.
I'm throwing this in there. And again, we talked about it briefly because they've happened to play both of these teams. I do think, if you're looking at a non-drafted quarterback out there, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly somebody whose name's going to be thrown out there. I don't know whether you want
to talk about a limited downfield passing offense. You put Jimmy Garoppolo.
Limited downfield, and he's made of glass, okay? And then the other one is the
combination other than that, though, right?
Oh, Jesus. And I will say this as a person who at the time was all in on Jimmy versus Brady, not because I thought he was better, but I didn't want the Patriots to be in this situation now. I would rather stability of someone who might develop into an elite level quarterback versus squeezing those last year or two out of Tom, even if it did cost you a Super Bowl. Turns out Jimmy might be more Jag than anything. And if that's the case, I wouldn't get your hopes up, fans, on that. The enticing name to me is and has always been Sam Darnold. And again, only because of the pedigree. And you wonder whether the system broke him, whether he's a byproduct of Adam.
He's another guy, though, that's going to need some time. He's not necessarily known for being, that supercomputer brain, that quick processor, and that guy that understands post-snap adjustments and things like that to route details and things. He would need a full year, I think, in the system before you start seriously talking about starting him.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look for a couple more here. People are yelling at each other as much as they are asking questions.
Said that Phillip Rivers is better than Cam Newton, so I think he lost all validity from that point only.
Let's see. So let me scrape through here and see what else we could find. Someone saying hi from Tel Aviv. I don't know exactly what Stan means with this. When do they move Harry? I do want to address this because it keeps coming up a lot. And it comes up from people. I'm just surprised to hear it so much. Okay. N'Keal Harry's not a tight end. Okay. Yeah. I think everyone thinks every time you have a largish receiver, they're like, why can't he just be like Aaron Hernandez? And again, we've talked about this before. N'Keal Harry, Aaron Hernandez was one of the biggest freaks of nature at what he could do. Twice the athlete N'Keal Harry is faster in straight line speed and 3 times quicker and strong as an ox. In fact, Aaron Hernandez bench pressed more than Gronk at the combine. This is the physical tools of someone like that, Harry doesn't compare. He cannot play tight end. But the question is, how can you use him differently than what you're using him now? And again, what can be salvaged here with N'Keal? We can't just keep saying, well, okay, he's blocking, he's doing some little things. If you have to find a way to utilize some skill set, what would you have that be? What would you like to see him do more of?
So what they're doing with him, because this is another thing that I really wanted to watch, because he played plenty of snaps against the Texans. He's out there. He's running routes. But what they did with him mainly is using his yak ability or rack ability, yards after the catch, on shallow routes, little crossing routes over the middle, things that can get him into sort of space to run with the football. And I think the biggest reason why is that Damiere Byrd and Jacoby Myers are not exactly yak receivers. That's not really their sort of cup of tea. Damiere is obviously a vertical threat, and Jacoby's more of the guy at the top of the route that's really crisp and can get open and create separation, but he's not necessarily as dynamic with the ball in his hand. So the Patriots are using N'Keal Harry as a blocker. They're using him as kind of like a pick defender sometimes, almost to like kind of get in the way of releases and stuff like that out of stacks and bunches. That's what you saw in the Damiere touchdown, as they switch release it. N'Keal kind of gets that rub at the line of scrimmage, and it gets Damiere up the field and into the defense. That's sort of how you go about that. That's what they're using him as. Do I think it's the best way to use him? I'm not sure, but you watch him run downfield routes, and he just doesn't create any separation. He's just not fast. He's not explosive. He's not good at the top of the route. So there's just nothing really to gain from that. So they're using him as sort of an underneath option, hoping to get the ball in his hands and catch and run opportunities, because really he's the only guy that's built size-wise, strength-wise, and just in terms of what he's comfortable with to be that yak receiver for them underneath the defense. So that's what they did. They get Myers, they get Byrd up the field, they have Harry cross in the shallow part of the field, and N'Keal, Cam will just check it down to him if that's what's open, and you go from there. Oh, we lost John. I can't hear you. I think you unplugged your mic. No? Okay. Well, I can't hear you, but yeah, I got to jump out. Let's see. No, still can't hear you. Huh. Yeah, no, I still can't hear you. 1 second. I don't know what the issue is, but yeah, I can't hear you at all. Good ending. This is a good ending. I don't know if you guys can hear me. They say they can't hear us either. So, well, hopefully you guys can hear me. We're just going to wrap this up. Thank you very much. Oh, you can hear me. Okay, that's good. So we're just going to wrap this up here. I appreciate all the questions. We're going to be back on the Patriots Beat podcast. I have Mark Schofield coming on with me later this week to break down Cam and Kyler Murray and all the things going on.
I'm back.
Oh, he's back. There we go.
Sorry, everybody. Technical difficulty.
Oh, we lost you again.
Got it.
There you go. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. It's going to happen. Everybody hung in here. This is what happens. We're live.
Yeah.
We're live. Thank you guys for sticking it out here. Let's get to this question real quick. You don't have to give us a ton of names here, but again, Yorgo, and this is, I wanted to hit on my man here, Ikonomu. That's my mother's maiden name.
Oh.
Yeah. And I had an uncle, Yorgo, who would always say Yasu Yani, and I'd say Yasu Yorgo, and that was our little gimmick there. But anyway, quarterback in the draft. Anything else you see past day one? Any value picks here that you said could be a draft and develop sort of player?
Yeah, I think the thing with the draft and quarterbacks, it's always really hard for me is that so many guys at the top of the draft are surrounded by such great talent that it's really kind of difficult to what's going to happen when there's bodies flying around them in the pocket, when they are not throwing to three, receivers that are 5-star recruits against 3-star cornerbacks and stuff like that. What's going to happen when the situation is no longer good? I think in terms of, I don't know where he's going to go exactly in the draft, and I haven't done a ton of homework on the deep sleepers quite yet. But a guy like Mac Jones, I think, is really intriguing. He's probably not going to be a top 10, 15 pick. We're talking more about like a top 50 pick. I think he has sort of the makeup and obviously the familiarity with the Saban style system to kind of understand the sort of professionalism of the NFL. And I think he's got a chance to be a kind of point guard of the Patriots offense. It's just somebody that comes in here and makes the necessary throws and runs the system properly. And maybe he's a name that they look at. I know a lot of people like Zach Wilson or Trey Lance at the top of the draft. I don't know if they're going to go there at the top of the draft. I wonder if Belichick is more focused on filling the other holes around quarterback than he is worrying about who's going to be the next guy right now.
Okay, last question here, just because it is topical here. Rex Burkhead tweeted out today, see you guys next year, back better than ever. It was very clear that he was done for the year after that hit, both from his reaction and his teammates. Who's next man up here, Sony or JJ? I would think JJ, because of the diverse skill set. Sony's a redundancy. I'm not going to lie, Evan. I don't understand. I don't understand activating Sony at all and then losing 2 players to waivers. That's a different story. I find the whole thing baffling there. But what do you think? What do you think happens this weekend?
Well, I think Sony will be active. I don't think they're giving up on Sony Michel. I don't think Ivan Fears is giving up on Sony Michel, the Patriots running backs coach. What do they do in passing sub situations is really going to be fascinating, though, because James White has really become a pass player, excuse me. And then obviously Damian Harris and Sony Michel are run players. And Rex Burkhead was sort of the only guy that could do a little bit of both. And they could put him on the field and sort of do whatever they wanted with him. So I'm fascinated to see how they go about that part of their offense. Is how do they become, not predictable by putting one guy out there? My guess is, and I'm not sure if he's ready for it, but Damian Harris might be in for sort of like a true lead back role where he's only coming off the field when on third down, obvious passing situations when James White needs to get out there.
I do wonder that as well. And what's interesting is Harris has shown that he's absolutely fine catching passes out of the backfield. And again, I'm not sure whether this is Belichick, with his old guy veteran crutch thing where he was playing Rex as much as he was. And Rex was playing really well. But again, just in terms of he was just a first down machine this year. And also he was spelling James White, who was, not himself for a series of reasons early in the year, kind of playing that role where he was doing both. Yeah. But I do think what's funny is Harris slides into the Rex Burkhead role, meaning I think he takes all of Rex's snaps in addition to his own, and James White comes in on third downs, and Sony might be an occasional, giving him an occasional blow here. But I do think you're right. Harris, assuming he's fully healthy, is in line for a lot more carries. So apologies for the technical difficulties. I'll tell everybody once again, subscribe to the Patriots Beat podcast with Evan Lazar on the CLNS Media Network. Evan, do you know who you have later this week coming up?
Yeah, it'd be me and Mark Schofield on the pod. I wanted to have him on to talk quarterbacks, Cam, Kyler, that type of stuff. And we'll break it all down and get you ready for Arizona.
Okay, and as always, our exclusive Patriots video content at clnsmedia.com/Patriots Press Pass. You can just go there, subscribe. You'll be notified every time we go live. We'll do some Q&As every single week, Patriots post-game shows as we've been doing, which we've had you all on board all season long. So make sure you subscribe to that channel, and so we can keep bringing you this content for free. So again, for Evan Lazar, I'm John Zanis. This has been the Patriots Beat Podcast.